Hi everyone, nubkeks here. It's bitterly cold. January night. It's almost midnight. I'm freezing my ass off, but it's okay because we are on a mission today or tonight, maybe even into tomorrow if this goes long. And it's probably not going to go that long, but close. It's going to be a bit of a long video. Strap in. We're going to be giving, or I'm going to be giving you my top 5 epics for every faction in the entire game. And on top of that, at the end, I'll then give you my top 5 epics in the game in total, as if, I was given a brand new account, fresh account. Nubkeks, have any epic, any 5 epics. What 5 epics would I choose? Day 1 account, here are 5 epics of your choice. These are what I would pick. So anyway, without any further ado, let's dive into Bannerlords. Where we've actually got a pretty decent selection of epics here. It's not too bad. In 5th place, I'm putting Warcaster, actually. Does a couple of fun things. Block damage on a 4-turn cooldown for 1 turn. Can be good in some clan boss unkillable teams, though he's sort of the lesser part of it. Then he also has a block buffs AoE. He can steal some buffs on his A1. I think he's okay. He's decent. He's not blowing my mind, but I think he could be decent for Hydra with the block buffs, clan boss, Demon Lord with this. And okay in the rest of the game, maybe some Doom Tower stuff. I think he's decent, not too bad. In 4th place, I'm putting Giscard the Sigiled, or Sigiled, as I've seen some people say. So he's got, increasing defense and attack for your entire team on a 3-turn cooldown. Pretty nice. And then he has Provoke on a 3-turn cooldown as well, with shield buff for himself. Some decreased attack on his A1, turn meter boosting. He's just a decent all-around supportive package, keeping your team alive, controlling the enemy team. Again, he's not blowing my mind, but he's solid. For the top 3 here, we're getting into some more powerful champions, I would say. Ursula the Mourner. Nice speed aura for Doom Towers, very good. She has one of the best revives in the entire game then in Requiem. That's her big move. 5-turn cooldown, revives all dead allies, 75% HP, half-turn meter, and then puts increased defense, 60%, and strengthen buff on all allies for 3 turns, including the one she revived. Yeah, you can even force her to do this with no one dead, and she'll do the increased defense and strengthen. Then she has an AoE decreased attack with increased attack for you, some turn meter stuff. Ursula's very good. A very good supportive unit. Her defense is bad, though. A little bit tricky to keep her alive compared to some others, but she's very, very good. What could possibly be better than that? With number 3, we're getting pretty good. Archmage Helmet, I'm going to put into 2nd place. I feel like he is maybe even a little bit better. Increased speed, crit rate, crit damage on a 3-turn cooldown for your whole team. Nice buffs, but also an AoE stun. Very reliable stun on a 3-turn cooldown. Even does good damage against the Hydra, believe it or not. But yeah, it's just one of the most reliable sources of stun. Not only amongst epics, one of the best amongst epics, but incredibly good just across the game in general. So Archmage, very strong, very fast. A champion as well, so he's great for control. I use him extensively even now in my Doom Tower teams, more than I use Ursula. Archmage for me is almost irreplaceable. And then in number 1, though, I'm giving it to Stag Knight. Classic, right? Absolute classic. 3-turn cooldown when booked. Decreased defense, decreased attack on the enemy team, decreased speed on his A1, and increased accuracy whenever you miss a debuff for one of your teammates. Pretty solid, great speed, just good stats overall. Does decent damage as well. Stag Knight is just, the classic. He's fantastic for Fire Knight, for nearly anywhere, as just bringing this consistent level of debuffs on such a short cooldown. There's a couple of champions that do it now, but for me, Stag Knight still sort of stands as number 1. Moving into High Elves, I'm pretty sure I've been playing the game for maybe a year and a half. I don't think they've added a new High Elf epic in the entire time I've been playing. I'm almost 100% certain this is the exact same set of champions that were there when I started, which is insane. And it's not been kind. Time has not been kind. A lot of these champions have fallen behind. In 5th place, I'm putting Thanasil, but I don't think he's great. I'm going to be honest. He has an AoE that decreases enemy buff duration by 1 turn, 5-turn cooldown. He has increased defense buff and then healing all allies based off of his HP. It's a 3-turn cooldown. It's a pretty good thing to keep you alive. And then his A1 has a medium chance to put asleep. Resist in dungeons. He's very average, to be honest. He was probably really good when he first came out, but Honestly, although I'm putting him number 5, it's more that he's better than the other ones. I still don't know if I would bother building him. In fact, I wouldn't. But he's number 5 just because there's lack of options. Number 4, I'm putting Jingle Hunter. I think Jingle Hunter is underrated. 24% speed aura for arena battles. If you get this guy early in your account, he could easily be your best arena champion. AoE attack in arena that decreases turn meter, hits reasonably hard. A2 that hits reasonably hard, and if he kills someone, it will then freeze the entire enemy team if he kills someone. And then some decreased speed on his A1. He's a solid arena champion if you're an early game player, and you don't have the better epics like Skull Crown or Genbo or what have you. Good arena speed aura, yeah. He's a solid arena champion. Can be very worth it for early game accounts. In third place, I'm putting Vergis. Vergis is probably most famous for soloing the Scarab King in Doom Tower. I use him for that, which is very useful. He keeps shielding himself. He heals himself when he's low on health. Requires quite a bit of gear to make it work and destroy set, so it doesn't take 10 years. But yeah, not too bad. Outside of that, though, not super useful. He has a defense aura for dungeons, and then he puts a nice buff on one teammate and ally protection on everyone else, defense on himself. So he's okay for keeping your team alive, but he's mostly, for me, I think, just a Scarab one trick. But the Scarab's a pain in the ass, so being a Scarab one trick is actually pretty good. Second place, I'm giving to Tyrell, classic champion. Decreased attack on his A1. AoE decreased defense, albeit on a 4-turn cooldown. Can also play sleep if they're already under decreased attack. Then his A3, 4-turn cooldown, hits hard, depletes turn meter, and then will stun for 2 turns if he fully depletes the turn meter. Defense in all battles as well. He's just a great champion in general. Really solid. I, in fact, used him to clear Nightmare campaign. With Sylve the Drakes and Tyrell together in tandem. He's fantastic. He's really, really solid. Again, like a 4-turn cooldown on this. It is a bit behind what some of the newer epics can do, but he's great for clan boss, for lots of dungeons, defense based, so he's tanky and he still hits pretty hard. Tyrell's a really solid epic. And then the number 1, I think pretty much no question, is Royal Guard. The big thing with Royal Guard is this: AoE, enemy max HP nuke. He also brings a really good ally attack aura for dungeons, so he's sort of king of the level 20 dungeons, which is not as relevant for the gear dungeons anymore, but for all the potion keeps for Minotaur, and now again for Hydra, with enemy max HP coming in clutch. Royal Guard is fantastic, and by far the best damage dealer in the epics for High Elf, so he's really good. Going on next then to Sacred Order. We have a lot of bad epics in here, but also some incredibly good ones. In 5th place, I'm going to put Phoenix. I feel like he's very underrated. His A1 hits twice if the enemy has any debuffs at all. It also blocks revives. This hits very hard. It's one of the hardest hitting A1s in the entire game. Maybe even the hardest hitting. I don't know. It's way up there anyway. So he does a ton of damage. Then he has an AoE block buffs. Can block active skills if that doesn't work. On a 4-turn cooldown, he is a single target then, decreased defense, decreased speed. He's just very solid overall. Very, very solid. Great damage dealer. Maybe not end game that strong, but earlier in the game, absolutely fantastic. Blocking revive on Ice Golem. Does good damage against bosses with that A1 too. He's solid. In 4th place, I can't believe Mordecai's only 4th, but we've got such good epics here. Mordecai in 4th place. AoE HP burn, right? 4-turn cooldown, places that, always places it on everyone, increased attack on allies as well. Does some turn meter control with his other stuff, but he's really just about this HP burn. Just wins Spider Dungeon for you, which is great. He's probably decent as well against the Hydra. Haven't used him yet, and some Doom Tower levels, probably decent there too. Mordecai's fantastic. Just one of the best AoE HP burners in the epics. We got 3 better than them. Inquisitor Shamael, though, I'm putting him in 3rd. He's really come into the meta in the last while due to counteracting one of the heads of the Hydra, right? Removing true fears from that Hydra and filling turn meter, great. He also hits really hard. Give him 3 buffs and he's ignoring 100% of the target's defense. 3 buffs on Shamael, he ignores all defense, so he absolutely rips through things. So yeah, he's a good single target damage dealer and especially good against Hydra. So you can absolutely build him for that and he will have use for you, possibly in arena, certainly in some Doom Tower floors against Sifis, things like that, really nasty enemies like Sifi and Rotos. He's a solid champion, especially with Hydra. There are 2 that are better than him though. The first one is Deacon Armstrong. Oh my god, Deacon is a beast. Nice speed aura for all battles, useful everywhere. Then he boosts turn meter, decreases enemy turn meter, gives himself an extra turn, and then has decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. And with these extra turns, this actually is more like a 2-turn cooldown. Then he also has an A1 which places Leech. So Deacon is incredible for Arena. He's actually really good for Hydra as well. And he's also a core component for a lot of clan boss, Demon Lord clan boss teams. He opens up a bunch of different unkillable options or even just good basic options. Deacon is just phenomenal in basically every aspect of the game. And then the one I do think is better is actually Godseeker Aniri. Void Epic and one of my favorite champions, just a fantastic support that actually does really good damage as well. So she has an AoE, which does a nice juicy heal to you, decreases enemy buffs by a turn, and increases your own buffs by a turn. Again, this opens up a bunch of interesting team comps with extending your own buffs. She has a revive single target on her A3, which also resets the cooldowns of your target skills. She makes everyone get healed a bit more. She also, every 4 turns, will preemptively put a revive on death on a target before they die. So it's an extra revive. Her A1 also heals. So yeah, she just does good damage, great healing, nice buff manipulation. Yeah, I use her in Hydra. She's MVP. Again, in Hydra, super good. Great for normal clan boss. And great basically everywhere. Yeah, probably the best sort of healer reviver in the EPICS. She's just super good. Going over then to Barbarians, this is relatively a much weaker faction compared to Sacred Order that we just came from. So we're in sort of a situation here where we're kind of struggling to actually pick good epics, I think. I'm putting Suwai Firstborn 5th place. I think Suwai is a bit underrated. She's been buffed, but hasn't really got the attention she deserves. Her A1 can place decreased defense, which is nice. And if you kill enemies, she gets some nice bonuses, so for Faction Wars. Then she has an AoE decreased attack on a 3-turn cooldown, which is pretty good. Then her A3 puts weaken even before attacking, so it makes her actually hit a bit harder with that. So not bad, you know, decrease defense on her A1, weaken on her A3, and an AoE decrease attack on her A2. It's a good set of skills. I think she's a solid champion that hasn't really gotten, the attention she deserves. In 4th place, I'm putting Skytouch Shaman, another Void Epic here. Weird champion, no doubt about that. She does have an AoE cleanse for your entire team that puts block debuffs and revive on death on your entire team. Her passive is really wacky. Every turn she hurts herself by 10% of her max HP, but then she heals all of your team based off of half of the lost HP. She actually heals like way more than you think she will. You do really need to pair her with a reviver because she will kill herself eventually. But she just does absolutely monstrous amounts of healing. I don't know what the maths is behind it, but it's definitely not quite right. She heals way more than she should. So she just puts out a ton of healing whilst also protecting you from debuffs. That's basically what she does. Pretty good. Armina, then I'm putting in 3rd place. I'm a little sketchy on this one, but I think she's good. Basically, her thing, she's really good with stuns. She starts getting turn meter whenever anyone is stunned. She's an AoE decreased defense, which can steal turn meter. There's an AoE turn meter depletion, which can stun if she depletes turn meters, which is a bit unreliable, but it's there. And her A1 can stun. I think she's kind of like War Maiden, but better. She's like War Maiden, but with stuns and some turn meter stuff, which is really solid. She's a solid champion. Has absolutely no defense, though. She's squishy as all hell. But I actually think she has a place in some control teams, like in Doom Tower, some really hard content. She can actually be pretty good there. So yeah, I actually think Armina's solid. Then, believe it or not, I'm putting Haikatoon in 2nd place. Yeah, it's true. I actually think Haikatoon, again, is much better than people give her credit for. Speed Aura lead in all battles is so useful. You get her 1 month into the game, and she's probably going to be front and center of your arena team, probably front and center of a lot of your teams. Then Rally the Horde is her big move where she fills turn meter and puts increased speed on everyone. Does some speed manipulation and turn meter manipulation with her other stuff, which is okay, but she's really mostly just about that stuff. But she just does a good, solid job. And again, considering how early on you get her, just how useful she is for what she does. I think people kind of dismiss her because she doesn't do any damage. But she's fantastic. Then number 1 is kind of without question here, Farrakhan the Fat. Absolute monster of a champion. Decreased defense on an A1. A2 which puts HP burn and 2 poisons, and then his A3 is the big thing, 4 turn cooldown, 30% crit rate, 30% crit damage on all allies except for him for 3 turns, and then all allies except for him will attack 1 target enemy. Monstrously good ally attack on an epic champion. These are very rare abilities, and this is one of the best ones, if not the best one. And then he also does some weird passive stuff, but yeah, just huge for clan boss, especially for Demon Lord. Really enhances the damage of your team. He's an absolute beast. Going then into the Galian Pact, we have Ogre Tribes with some really good champions here as well. I'm going to put Urgrim in 5th place. Urgrim got mega nerfed and people kind of hate him, but he's not too bad. He's got a good speed aura for all battles, AoE poisons, and then AoE continuous heal for you. He has a single target cleanse and heal, and some extra poisons on his A1. He's actually pretty solid. He's got good base stats as well. He's actually pretty solid for things like Ice Golem and Dragon. That sort of content, you know, enemies which are where poisons are very good. Even some clan boss stuff maybe. So he's a good solid champion. Was nerfed into the ground, but is still solid. In 4th place, I was a bit torn on this. I am going to put Grush in there. I do think Grush is pretty decent as well. He has a leech in his A1. Then he has 2 AoE attacks. So 1 AoE attack, which puts decreased attack or decreased crit damage. And then another AoE attack, which puts continuous heals onto your team. So he's essentially a pretty good healer with some decent AoE damage, defense based. He's sort of like a mini Syl of the Drakes in that sense, without the revive, but bringing the healing and some nice AoE defense based damage. I think he's a good solid champion. Then we've got the top 3, which I think are kind of stepping up into another league. In 3rd place, I've got Skull Crusher. The only epic in the entire game that gives counterattack to your entire team, right? So counterattack for your team, ally protection for your team as well, unkillable for himself. He works in some unkillable comps in Clan Boss. He works as a counterattack champion in just non-unkillable teams for Demon Lord as well. Good for some Doom Tower bosses too. Can be good for some arena teams. Yeah, the only other place to get AoE counterattack is in legendaries, so he's just super good for that. Ugo then comes in 2nd place. You know who has to go in 1st place, right? But man, I love Ugo, dude. Ugo, yeah, I don't know. Just with Hydra especially, Ugo, it's just so hard not to put her in my teams. She's just fantastic. AoE decreased defense and block buffs. So good on a 3-turn cooldown. And she also brings a really nice heal that also removes some debuffs on her A3, places Leech on her A1. She does some funky stuff when she's the last one alive, which basically never really happens because she's too tanky. But yeah, just that kit is so useful. Great for arena, Hydra, everywhere. Ugo is like quickly becoming my go-to decreased defense epic. And then in 1st place, it's got to be, no question, Maneater, who doesn't look really, his picture looks so much cooler. And then he's kind of, it's a little disappointing, eh? But Maneater, unkillable for 2 turns, block debuffs for 2 turns. Yeah, you guys know about Maneater. Maneater just opens up a ton of super easy to make unkillable teams for the Demon Lord clan boss, which is the most important thing to do in the entire game because it's the best source of legendary books, epic books, sacred shards, void shards, ancient shards, all the stuff. You want to do it. He opens up unkillable, which is by far the easiest way to do it. So yeah, there's no way he couldn't be number 1, though there is another champion that now gives you access to the same sort of things in the epics. We'll get to her in a while. Going to Lizardmen. Lizardmen, funny enough, they used to be terrible. They've really improved recently, though. And even though they have a small selection of epics, they've got some pretty good ones. In 5th place, I'm actually going to put Quargan the Crowned. I think this guy's kind of underrated. He's kind of cool. He puts Perfect Veil and increased attack in AoE for 2 turns. Nice. Good for Hydra. He also puts block debuffs or increased defense on allies whose defense is higher than their attack. So basically upping your damage of your damage dealers no matter what. I think that's really solid. Then he has a heal and a shield on his A2. Yeah, I think Quargan's actually pretty good. I'm definitely underrated. 4th place, I'm giving to Broadmaw. Broadmaw, I think, is better than people anticipate. Broadmaw gives 30% crit rate, 15% speed, and fills turn meter of allies by 15%. It's actually pretty similar to like an Apothecary or to a High Katoon. It's actually similar. It doesn't give as much of a speed buff, but this is a great ability. And he's actually a fusion. You can fuse him. So he's a guaranteed epic you can get pretty early in the game. I think he's a good, solid arena champion. And then his big thing, he brings a revive on 2 allies. Now, admittedly on low health and no turn meter, yes. but it's still good. And then his A1 is a decent chance to freeze. I think he's a good, solid champion. You're going to be building him for faction wars anyway, and he's going to be great for some arena stuff too. I think he's actually pretty solid. Then in number 3, I've got Aox the Rememberer. Fantastic champion. Keeping your team alive. His A3, AoE decreased defense, just guaranteed to happen. Also depletes turn meter. Also can put decreased crit rate if they have 50% or more turn meter after the turn meter decrease. Really nice. Just really good, reliable AoE decrease attack. His A2 then is a really good heal. It heals more for every debuff on the target, becomes a very strong heal. A1 is a low chance of poison, and then he's got a very cool passive that increases the duration of 2 random debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn when attacked. So he's great for things like Hydra, for clan boss, any difficult bosses in the game, Ice Golem, whatever. He's going to be great for that, keeping your team alive and healthy. In number 2, I'm putting Jareg, old school, but very good. He's got a cool passive where whenever an ally takes 20% of their max HP in one hit, he gives them a nice continuous heal. And this can stack multiple continuous heals if they get hit multiple times. Then his A2, 4-turn cooldown, increased defense and ally protection for 2 turns. His A1, decreased attack, single target. So his damage sucks, but what he does is he keeps your team alive. Great against things like Eternal Dragon and Doom Tower, and then probably most notably against clan boss. If you've got a non-unkillable team, he's one of the best. HP in all auras, battle as well. So yeah, just he keeps your team alive. He keeps them running. Really good champion. And then number 1, a new champion that's sort of taken the game a bit by storm. Absolute beast of a champion. Venomage. AoE, heal reduction, and poisons, right? So it applies poisons in an AoE. Then for single target, for clan boss more so, and bosses, can put decreased defense and decreased attack if the enemy's under poison. Really good. A1 can decrease target's max HP and also activates poison debuffs. So starts consuming those poison debuffs, makes them actually do their work early. Also, enemies under heal reduction, and she applies heal reduction in AoE for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown, makes them do 15% less damage. So absolute beast for Demon Lord, keeping your team alive and just basically all the best buffs and debuffs for Demon Lord. All the best debuffs, I should say. Super good, keeps your team alive, and great across multiple dungeons as well. Venomage is a real star. Really, really strong. Going then to Skinwalkers, we have, oh my god, like, I don't know how these epics are so bad. Like, what is going on? These epics suck, man. These epics suck. Like, genuinely, I think, like, the best epic of this faction is worse than the worst epic of, well, of the top 5 list for some other factions, like Sacred Order or Orcs, or who do we just look at, like, Lizards even? Like, these epics are rough. In 5th place, I'm putting Scabrius. Scabrius, he's a new champion. I think he's kind of underrated because he's new. And because he's very like Fane, who's in the faction as well. But he has a single target weaken that can also increase attack on himself. He's an AoE attack with Leech, pretty okay. And then his A1 applies poisons. And then he also does more damage against enemies under poison. So I think he's just generally a decent damage dealer. And he's going to be very good for clan boss as well. So I think he's pretty solid. He's okay. In 4th place, then, I'm going to be putting in Taurus. I don't have, but Taurus is good for some niche poison explosion comps. He puts himself to 1% HP, makes himself unkillable for 2 turns, and then puts out a whole ton of poisons on the enemy team. You put in a poison exploder. They're very rare, like Xavia or Elinarl, 2 legendaries. Super rare, but he does enable those teams, and he's good for the faction wars too. If you have a reviver, you could make it work as well. So he's kind of niche, but he does a pretty unique thing, which is pretty valuable. So I guess he's in number 4. Number 3 is Basher, who's a decent attack-based damage dealer. AoE that increases the cooldown of the target skills. This is his sort of big thing, which is it's decent. It's decent. His A1 can weaken. His A3 hits randomly and can place block buffs. So he's okay. He's not going to do crazy damage. He's going to do okay damage. His debuffs, like this increasing their skills, is decent. No, not as good as like a stun or like Umbral Enchantress doing AoE provoke or something like that, but it's decent. So I think he's okay. He's not going to blow your mind off, but he's a good, solid damage dealer. In 2nd place, I'm putting Steel Skull, who is definitely, I think, being power crept, but still all right. AoE heal with increased defense on a 4-turn cooldown, single target heal with a cleanse, and then an okay chance to play some poisons on an A1. I feel kind of bad about putting Steel Skull up so high. Steel Skull is a solid support. That's about it, though. I mean, maybe I should put Steel Skull a bit lower. Yeah, you know what? I probably put Steel Skull at 3 and Basher at 2 instead. But there you are. I'm going to put Fane into number 1. Fane is just pretty much good for only one thing, which is unkillable clan boss. But she's very good for that. She brings decreased defense, weaken, and then will also heal herself a bit. Then she has poisons and decreased attack on her A2. And yeah, then A1. So she does a lot of damage. Really good damage against the clan boss. She brings, again, weaken, decreased defense, and decreased attack, which is all of these are good, and a ton of poisons. So yeah, she's good for that. But she's super squishy, so she's kind of unusable almost anywhere else. Maybe okay for some faction war stuff. But yeah, she's, I don't know. Like I said, she's, in my opinion, probably the best Skinwalker, but she's not great. In fact, I'd rank all of these orcs as probably more useful than her, probably generally. Maybe not the 5th one, but the rest, probably, yeah. In 5th place, I'm putting Zargala. Old school champion, but still very solid. Has an AoE, decreased defense. Then she has a very fun A2, which bucks to a 2-turn cooldown, does a good single target hit, and it automatically, for free, casts her AoE hitter here, Crack Armor. If she kills someone with the attack, then her A1 can place weaken, though it's unreliable. So she's basically, it's good because she's force affinity, which is unusual to get, but she's just a good damage dealer in general, and then also bringing decreased defense as well. So she's a good, solid champion in multiple areas of the game, right? She's solid. You're not going to blow your mind, but she's solid for what she does. We have a very interesting champ then in 4th place. Sandlash Survivor has some buff manipulation here, decreasing enemy buffs by 1 turn and increasing ally buffs by 1 turn. Very useful ability. She brings defense in all auras, defense aura in all battles on her passive. And then Smell Weakness puts a provoke if she has no debuffs, useful against things like Magma Dragon, and also heals her if she is under any debuff. But it's her passive that really makes her special. Right, 4-turn cooldown, puts ally protection buff on all allies for 2 turns whenever their HP drops below 50%, and puts block damage on herself for 1 turn. So she's actually really solid for some funky stuff in Arena, right, to keep your team alive. You're not confident you can go first. Slap in Sandlash Survivor, and she'll ally protect everyone whenever they're going to be dropping low and keeping them alive. And block damage on herself means that she won't die either. And again, the buff manipulation is really good. She's fantastic as well for clan boss. And yeah, just a good defense-based damage dealer as well. She does really good damage. So a solid champion in a few different areas of the game. Duck the Pierced, I'm putting in number 3, which maybe seems harsh, but I think number 2 and 1 are really exceptional champions. So he has one of our favorite sort of moves in the game, AoE decreased attack and decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. So very comparable to Stag Knight. He's magic affinity though compared to Spirit, so they actually kind of work together. In that sense, you can use them for different dungeon stages, for different affinities. He's defense based, so he's easy to keep alive. He's going to be tanky and control stuff. He's decreased accuracy in his A1. Low chance to apply it though, but it's okay. And then he has this sort of weird provoke that's not super guaranteed, but a weird provoke with reflect damage and unkillable on his A3, which is kind of weak, a bit underwhelming, some defense and faction crypts as well. He's really all about Lunatic Outburst. I think the rest of his kit is not as good as Stag Knight, but he does have the advantage of being defense-based. But yeah, Duck is really good, and he's very handsome as well, which has got to count for something. In 2nd place, I'm putting Vrask. I think Vrask is great. Vrask's whole thing is he turn meter boosts himself whenever he crits. He basically never uses his A2. It's all about his passive. Whenever he crits, he heals all allies by 10% of Vrask's max HP. So what you do, give him 100% crit rate, give him tons of health, and make him fast, and that's it. You don't care about anything else, and he will just give him like a retaliation set, so when he's hit, he'll counterattack half the time, and he'll just keep spamming his A1. He'll just keep bonking people with his healing stick, and then the healing stick will heal your team for lots. He does tons of healing, like butt tons of healing. And he's fantastic against multiple of the hardest bosses in the game. Brilliant healer for Hydra, brilliant healer for Eternal Dragon, for Bommel. Yeah, just across the board, he's just great for healing your team. Just does butt tons of healing, and that makes him really valuable, in my opinion. And then number 1, probably no surprise, is Seer. Seer's busted. Enemy max HP move here, Karma Burn, 4-turn cooldown. The damage also scales based off of the buffs. She removes all the buffs from your team and the enemy team, then does this AoE attack. So she's like the Doom Tower queen, the wave clearing queen. She basically is arguably the best damage dealer for hard Doom Tower waves, for dungeon waves, level 21 to 25, right? She's incredible. There are some other ways to do it for sure, but she's like probably the easiest and cheesiest way to do it. Slap her in with a reset champion like Renegade and some buff providers, and she just boop boop deletes waves just like that. She's on another level. I'm shocked that they never nerfed this champion, to be honest with you. But there you go, epic damage dealer that for most PvE content completely makes all the legendary damage dealers obsolete, or at least somewhat. So she's nuts. Right, going into the Corrupted then. Demon Spawn are up first. This was actually kind of difficult. I was kind of struggling with where to assign people with this, but this is what I decided on. I'm not sure if Urtikata is any good. She's new, maybe, but I decided to leave her out because I wasn't sure. Maybe she's terrible. I'm putting in Paidman, old school champion, as number 5. Really fun thing Paidman does is her A1 is basically a guaranteed AoE decrease attack for 2 turns. So one of the easiest ways to apply AoE decrease attack. Fantastic for things like Hydra or Eternal Dragon. She's an AoE decrease accuracy. That's not that reliable, but it's there. And then she can remove buffs from a single target. So I think a great champion just in general. Bit old school, bit weird, like defense and attack scaling on abilities, but she does good damage and great debuffs. In number 4, I'm putting Umbral Enchantress, who looks just like Paidman, really, but it's probably a little bit better. She has an AoE block buffs for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Incredibly good and does really good damage. And then possibly even better, at least for arena and waves and stuff, this is amazing for Hydra. Another AoE attack that also hits hard and 100% chance to provoke for 2 turns and makes her unkillable. Insane. So you get her to go quick in arena, she locks down the entire enemy team with provoke and they can't kill her, and bam, you're good, right? And then her A1, does more damage as her health goes lower. That's fine, but she's really about these 2 moves. Really great. Really good champion. Arena, Hydra, Doom Tower, tons of places. Fantastic. Maybe I should have ranked her higher. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know. Should I have ranked her higher? Maybe. I'm putting Magnar in at number 3 as being just a phenomenal, just easy to build nuker, right? Because he's not a void epic or anything, so he's easier to get. And his move, what is it? Percussive Pound. He's HP based, so you build him with a ton of HP, full crit rate, tons of crit damage, and he comes in and absolutely smacks people with this AoE. Hits super, super hard. Absolutely claps people. I think, without... It hits as hard as a baseline Trunda does, who's probably the easiest and hardest hitting AoE damage dealer to build for arena, just in general. He hits as hard as that before she's empowered and before Faction Guardians, and increased attack buff would be the big one. But it's still really, really hard hit. So he's just a great AoE damage dealer for dungeons, Doom Tower, and especially for arena. And he does some other stuff too. That's most of what he's about. But just easy to build and keep alive with HP. So yeah, I think he's really good. In second place, I'm putting Achak the Wenderin, one of my favorite champions. So weird. What a weird champ. And he or she is great. Big thing Achak does is 3-turn cooldown AoE freeze. Almost guaranteed freeze. Can also sometimes HP burn instead of freeze if their defense is higher than their attack. In most PvE, it's nearly always a freeze. So AoE freeze for Spider, super good. I use Achak in my Spider team and lots of Doom Tower teams. Strengthen and block debuffs on all allies is okay. Does sort of weird stuff in the A1 with some turn meter and removing buffs. Not great though. And then a really cool passive. Whenever any enemy under freeze debuff takes a turn, fills the turn meter for all allies by 10%. Makes your team run much faster. And then also heals people whenever HP burn ticks on the enemy team. Heals your team. Really solid champion. Really great. Yeah, good for hard content like high-level Spider and high-level Doom Tower. And then in number 1, I've actually put Allure. Allure is good for one ability and one ability only, which is her A1, which attacks 3 times at random, but decreases the target's turn meter by 25% in each critical hit. So she's like the Fire Knight Queen. You get her to Fire Knight, she helps take down the shield quickly because it's a 3-hitter, and then every time she gets a turn, she decreases his turn meter by 75%. Now that gets halved above level 20. I think they take half turn meter effect. But still, she, for me, single-handedly, you built her fast enough, and she alone can stop level 25 Fire Knight from ever taking a turn. He just sort of stood there, and she's like, bam, Psychic Whip, Psychic Whip, Psychic Whip, and he never gets to go. Completely busted. It's probably the most important dungeon to farm in the late game, and she is literally almost irreplaceable for it. Like, you'd have to whip out some crazy legendary combinations, stuff like that, to achieve the same effect. She does it as an epic. No books required. Just build her fast and watch her, and accuracy, and watch her go. Yeah, really good champ. Undead Hordes is next, and we have some really good epics in here as well. In 5th place, I'm putting Mausoleum Mage. Sort of underrated supportive champion. He puts some nice buffs out, crit rate, increased defense, and block debuffs for your team on a short cooldown. He has an AoE cleanse, which also heals on a reasonably short cooldown, and that's sort of his deal. You know, he's pretty quick as well, so he's good for Arena, Doom Tower, especially nasty bosses like Nether Spider, just helping your team stay alive, which is pretty nice. In a similar sort of vein, I'm putting Gore Grab. Gore Grab is like mini Arbiter. You get him early in the game and he's great. He has a speed aura for Arena. He brings an AoE revive that also heals as well. Then he brings a turn meter fill with increased attack. It's like Arbiter but worse. And then he can remove some buffs on his A1. But yeah, you just build this guy fast and he's a great Arena champion, great Arena lead, great for faction wars, some dungeons earlier in the game as well. He does fall off later, but I do feel like he's so strong for early and mid-game accounts that makes him just super valuable. In 3rd place, I'm putting Husk, another incredibly underrated champion. What does Husk do? This is his big move to spare. AoE attack, 4-turn cooldown, damage proportionate to enemy max HP. So he's very similar to Royal Guard from the High Elves, but different affinity. I'm actually going to do a guide on Husk very soon. I'm working on him right now for Hydra stuff, because this is just super good for Hydra. It's also just super good for things like Dragon dungeons, etc. Minotaur, whatever, level 20 dungeons. Great for that sort of stuff. Everywhere that Royal Guard is good, he's good. Royal Guard does a few extra bits and his other skills that are better, but Husk has the advantage of being HP based, so Husk is going to be very tanky. He's not going to die on you. And then again, for dungeon and faction war content, this ability is also a 60% chance to stun. So it doesn't do anything, doesn't stun the Hydra, but he's still super valuable for that. But yeah, great for dungeon content. So Husk, one of the most historically underrated champions. He's really come back and been appreciated now with the release of Hydra, though. Seeker then is my number 2. Just a bit of a toss-up between number 1 and 2, but Seeker's phenomenal. Arguably could be number 1 for sure. 30% turn meter fill with 50% increased attack on allies and gives an extra turn, 3-turn cooldown. And because it gives an extra turn, it's like every 2 turns he's boosting your turn meter, boosting your attack. Then he just has a chance of provoking his A1. Has a fun little passive here that puts increased defense on allies when he's hit with a critical hit. So pretty good for some defensive sort of arena teams. Try to keep you alive. But yeah, he's fantastic. The place where he super shines is, of course, in your Demon Lord clan boss, where he enables basically the best, most of the best clan boss teams. A ton of them require Seeker. Why? Because he gives so much turn meter to your team. He makes it just easier to build. It makes it doable to have your team actually run in turn. So Bat Eater is probably the most famous example. I actually run a Bat Eater team myself, and yeah, Seeker is just incredible for that. I did cheekily put Vogoth ahead of him, though. I'm putting Vogoth as my number 1 Undead Horde. If you want to put Seeker number 1, I really wouldn't blame you. I think Vogoth is great, though. He has a triple hitter A1, which can increase some debuffs, is okay. He's an AoE provoke, which can also place decrease attack. Pretty decent, but it's his passives that really make him cool. Whenever he's attacked, he heals all allies by half of the damage received, 25% of the damage received from boss attacks. And then he also, when he's attacked, puts leech on the attacker. And then if the attacker's under provoke, so if he provokes them with his A2 and then they attack him, he'll also increase the cooldown of one of their skills. So Vogoth does a bunch of really fun stuff. Number 1, I think he's pretty decent for regular clan boss, and just in general, just helping your team stay alive with his healing stuff. He's incredibly good for some cheesy arena teams. You just slap him in. He doesn't even need any speed. He just sort of sits there. He gets hit by the AoE attacks and then heals your entire team for half of the AoE attacks. And your team is like, hey, we're all full health. And Vogoth is just chilling. He's cool. He's cool with it. Pretty nice. He can also do some really fun, cheesy things against stuff like Bommel. I'm working on like a Bommel team right now that's going to use multiple Vogoths. So the idea is going to be that, like, or the idea is that the bombs explode and then you've got multiple Vogoths all healing everyone. So they all heal each other and none of them ever die from the bombs. The bombs just turn into like weird, wacky stuff. There's no one quite like Vogoth. There's like Burgoth, who's a really shit version of Vogoth, but no one as good as Vogoth for what he does. I think it's just really fun and unique. So yeah, he's my number 1. Dark Elves. We've got a great selection of epics again. In 5th place, I'm going to put Lua. I don't have her, but I think she's a good damage dealer. Kind of like sort of like a Cold Heart, but maybe not as useful. Weirdly enough, because she doesn't have enemy max HP damage, but she ignores shield block damage, fully depletes turn meter, 4-turn cooldown. It's a big hitter. Then she has a big hitting AoE. That's sort of it, you know? That's sort of it. She just does a ton of damage, right? She's a good damage dealer, good nuker for arena, early game dungeons. She's void, so she never weak hits. She's only 5th place here. I think that's pretty fair. In 4th place, I am going to put Dark Kael in 4th place. Maybe Dark Kael deserves a higher spot than that. The thing about Dark Kael is you don't get him until you're really, really far into the game. He's the 4th champion from normal Doom Tower. It's going to take you at least a year to get Dark Kael. And that's clearing all secret rooms. It takes forever. He has an AoE decrease attack that also increases the durations of all debuffs on the target. He can place poison single target. And then this is a fun ability, is A1, which activates 2 poisons or 1 poison, 1 HP burn. That does a ton of damage. It's great. He also decreases enemy crit rate if they have 2 or more poison debuffs on them. So he's really good for that, but you get him so late in the game that limits his usefulness. But he is, objectively speaking, a really good epic, but just by the time you get him, he may not actually be that useful. Like, I haven't built mine yet, just haven't needed to. In 3rd place, I'm putting Rian the Conjurer, an earlier Doom Tower champion, brings a single target revive. But the thing that Rian does that's really special is Sweeping Dismissal. 3-turn cooldown, removes all buffs from all enemies, and places Weaken on all enemies for 2 turns. Great for Hydra, for removing buffs from Hydra. Great in many dungeons for AoE Weaken. Great for Doom Tower, AoE Weaken. Great in Arena, strip the buffs off the enemy team, much like Madame Ceres, who we'll talk about in a second, does as well. And then AoE, A1 can place block buffs. Yeah, just a great solid champion. Can be a reliable reviver, sort of like mini Madame Ceres. I think Madame is a bit better, but Rian is pretty similar, to be honest. In 2nd place, I'm going to put Sylar. Sylar is a Doom Tower specialist, I would say. Probably pretty decent against Hydra as well. Haven't got mine to 60 yet, but I'm going to consider doing it. But 4-turn cooldown, AoE decrease speed, and 40% turn meter reduction. Makes her super good for controlling Doom Tower hard waves, and also really good for things like Arena as well, right? Just completely neuter the enemy team. Very similar to like an Apothecary or a Lysandra or someone who boosts your team's speed. She sort of does the same thing by decreasing the enemy's turn speed. Then she has an AoE attack, which places decreased accuracy. And then she has an AoE attack on her A1. Slap her in something like a stun set, make her run fast. And yeah, she's going to be decreasing their turn meter, slowing them down, decreasing their attack, and regularly stunning enemies. She's a fantastic champion. And then number 1 is Madame Ceres. Yeah, really OP. Basically a legendary, you know? She even has an awesome unique skin. But she's an epic, believe it or not. But she has an AoE buff removal that also decreases attack and also decreases defense on a 4-turn cooldown. It's super, super good. One of the best moves in the game. Then she has an AoE A2 as well, which can steal buffs and put block debuffs. Can also put True Fear on enemies when she steals their buffs. It's decent, and her A1 can place Fear. She also shields herself at the start of every turn. So she's very tanky, very survivable. And she's, you know, top tier arena. Absolute top tier arena champion. Top tier, I think, really good epic for Hydra as well. Maybe not top tier, but absolutely fantastic for removing the buffs from Hydra and placing AoE decrease defense, decrease attack. Super good. Yeah, she's just phenomenal champ. Really, really strong. Then we have Knight Revenant. Oh, a bit of a weird mishmash of epics here. I'm putting Sepulchre Sentinel in 5th place. Sepulchre is great for your traditional clan boss. She has increased defense and block debuffs on a 4-turn cooldown. She also has decreased attack on an A1 and a fun passive, which has, when it's booked up, a 50% chance of completely blocking incoming damage when an ally is attacked on a 1-turn cooldown, once per turn. Pretty cool, and a defense aura. So she's great for your traditional Demon Lord. If you don't have an unkillable team, she's pretty much the go-to to enable you to like really get into Ultra Nightmare because of the block debuffs on a short cooldown and decrease attack. She brings a ton of stuff to help your team stay alive, and she does really good damage as well as a defense-based damage dealer. So I think she's pretty solid. I was a bit torn then in terms of where to put other people. I'm going to put Doom Priest as number 4. I'm frustrated. I still haven't got a Doom Priest. I pulled all my shards, all my sacreds during the 10-time event for Doom Priest, thinking that, hey, this is a great time to get her, and I didn't get her. The one thing she does that's good, the rest of her abilities suck, but this ability is insane. Bolster, heals all allies by 7.5% of their HP at the start of her turn, and also removes 1 random debuff. So she is just constantly cleansing your team. Every time she takes a turn, cleansing, cleansing, cleansing. So you build her sort of tanky and just make her fast. You can slap her in like Relentless set or something like that. Just take lots of turns, keep cleansing. She's the MVP, very applicably, for Doom Tower. Great for Doom Tower. So many of those bosses have really nasty debuffs, and she just goes turn, 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 heals your team, removes those debuffs. Hydra, same sort of thing. Turn, 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 keeps removing debuffs. Great. There is Hanorach now, who's a Void Legendary, who's better than Doom Priest. But Doom Priest is way more accessible, obviously. For some people, she's accessible and really good. I am actually putting Skull Crown in 3rd place ahead of Doom Priest, though. The reason being, I feel like Skull Crown is basically like probably the best arena epic in the game that you can get, especially in early or mid-game accounts, even some late-game accounts. She's just fantastic, especially when you take 3v3 arena into account. Really good speed aura for arena. Then 2 really hard-hitting AoE abilities for damage. It's really her passive that makes her really special, though. She gets unkillable whenever she drops low on health, right? So you put her into your arena team, and it's like almost guaranteed they can crowd control her, but it's almost guaranteed that she's going to absolutely nuke the enemy team. You can do some fun stuff with this. I use her currently in one of my arena teams. I've always used her in my arena team since I got her. She's just an absolutely fantastic arena nuker. There is, again, a legendary now, Leorius the Proud, that's like Skull Crown but better. But yeah, you'll see her all over the place, and you'll know from your arena runs that she's a pain in the ass. In 2nd place, I'm putting Miscreated Monster. Again, another sort of legendary in disguise here, much like Madame Ceres. Maybe a bit old school, but I think he's just very solid, and it's really going to help, again, any early mid-game progression. His big thing is he has an AoE stun that puts a big shield buff on all allies, right? So really solid, great for arena, great for Spider Dungeon, all that sort of stuff. He has ally protection. He has AoE that can stun, can also decrease defense. If he does stun someone, it's really solid. He can place fears for arena. It's nice. Even this shield is even really good for Doom Tower, for the Scarab King, right? Really good for that. So he does have a bunch of uses. I know when I started the game, he was like one of the top tier epics. I feel like, there's other epics have come in and the game has changed with like Hydra and level 25 dungeons where he's not as good, but he's still very solid, does good damage. Yeah, he's just a great epic. So I haven't got him myself, unfortunately, but I'm going to put him at number 2, though you can let me know if you think he should drop down, and like maybe Doom Priest, with how the game has changed, should move up. I think that would be fair. And then at number 1, honorable mention to Sinacia, who's really good. I am going to put Rector Drath as number 1, though. AoE heal that also puts a Perfect Veil for 2 turns, or continuous heal if they're less than 100% HP. Single target revive with good HP and turn meter that puts Perfect Veil for 3 turns. She also does a ton of healing whenever anyone with Veil or Perfect Veil takes a turn. Increases their resistance, decreases attack on her A1. Fantastic champion. Brilliant for Hydra, brilliant for Arena, brilliant in Doom Tower, Faction Wars, tons of different dungeons as well. She does tons of healing with her passive and Necro Mutation. Good revive as well. Build her fast, look at her stats are phenomenal. Build her fast, tanky, good resistance so you can't stop her. And yeah, Rector Drath is just super, super good. I'm a big fan of Rector Drath. Now, final 2 factions. What do you think these last 2 are going to be, by the way? I'm predicting Wood Elves, almost definitely for one, with like Treekin and that sort of thing. Ents, really drawing on that Lord of the Rings influence, and Warhammer as well. And then I'm not sure what the last one will be, but I'm almost certain that's going to be Wood Elves. Dwarves, we got some really good epics. I'm going to put Canelia in 5th place. I think she's really underrated. She does some weird stuff, but I think that people don't appreciate how good she is. So this one, 2-turn cooldown, sleeps an ally, heals them by half their HP, and fills their turn meter by half whenever the debuff expires or gets removed, and it completely heals them and fills their turn meter if they take damage from an enemy. I actually saw YouTuber YST, I think, was working on Canelia as a solo Bommel champion. Bommel's the shittest boss in the game, and if she is actually able to solo all of hard Bommel, and he thinks it's really easy to do, then that is nutty. So that could even move her up the list, to be honest, if she is that good. She also does some like AoE sleep that can then fear instead. Some decreasing skills and stuff, she's weird. She's a weird champion, but I actually think she's really underrated. I'm putting her for sure at number 5. Really fast too, 109 speed. Really good. In 4th place, I'm going to put Runekeeper Dazdurk. Yeah, Dazdurk. Maybe Cornelia should be higher, but I think this guy's really cool. He has an AoE cleanse that also heals and puts continuous heals, which is nice, so tons of healing. Then he has increased attack and 25% turn meter fill on a 3-turn cooldown, really nice. Then his A1 can place leech, so he's just a really good support, making your team run faster, hit harder, cleansing them with debuffs. He's sort of like a mini arbiter with the cleanse, which is pretty damn good. Yeah, great for arena, tons of dungeons. Yeah, he's a good, solid champion, great support. Another great support, I'm 3rd place in putting Melga. Again, I feel like Melga should almost be better because she is so good. She has an AoE shield based off her max HP, which is a really big shield, and continuous heal buff for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Really great ability. Then she has a double target revive that also puts a shield on them. Yeah, she's just a super support. She gets tons of health, puts really big shields out. Yeah, she's great. Geomancer, I'm putting in number 2. Super good clan boss champion. He got mega nerfed because he was mega OP, and he's still incredibly good. He puts a HP burn for 3 turns and weaken on a 3-turn cooldown on a single target, also depletes their turn meter, and then he decreases the damage all allies receive by 15% and deflects that damage onto each enemy under HP burn debuff, and it also will start proccing extra damage based off their max HP whenever they hit him, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. He is phenomenal against Demon Lord. I think he's probably very good against Hydra as well because he has an AoE A1 that can place decreased accuracy. Pretty great. He's great against a bunch of Doom Tower bosses as well. Yeah, Geomancer is fantastic. Really good epic. You guys probably know about him. And then another new epic that has been a game changer is Demitha. Demitha, the new unkillable Demon Lord Queen. Block damage on all allies for 1 turn on a 3-turn cooldown, plus she heals, she extends ally buffs, she decreases ally debuffs and then also heals them. She puts some shields with her A1, which is sort of there, not that great, but yeah, she is like the new unkillable queen. You can build some really powerful unkillable teams for Demon Lord with her. I think she's going to be solid pretty much everywhere else in the game. So Demitha, yeah, she's fantastic, she really is. And yeah, there we go. They are the dwarves. Then one final faction. It's the Shadowkin, which, although they're a new faction, have a really good slew of epics. Yo, get those guys that have been designing the Shadowkin faction to go show the Skinwalkers some love. Poor old Skinwalkers, jeez. In 5th place, I'm putting a Boro, who, in my opinion, one of the coolest looking champs in the game. I love the like this effect on her swords. It's badass, man. So cool. And I love the hat. But yeah, really good single target damage dealer mostly. Decent for Hydra as well. She boosts her own crit rate and attacks, and then she puts Perfect Veil on herself. Then she has a 2-hitter that steals buffs and then transfers debuffs. Her A1 will attack all enemies if the target's under 4 more debuffs. So this hits really hard against Hydra, and she's veiling herself up as well, so you don't have to worry as much about the head that puts True Fears. So yeah, she's a good solid damage dealer. A good solid damage dealer that looks badass. I'd love to build her if I got her. In 4th place, I'm putting Hotatsu. Hotatsu? Yeah, I think that's how you say it. There's a bunch of epics here in Shadowkin that, because Faction Wars isn't out yet for them, we haven't really got to see in action, but I think Hotatsu is actually great. Really good. Especially for early game progressing players. Like, progressing through dungeons, great. He has increased defense and continuous heal on all allies on a 3-turn cooldown. Fantastic. AoE decrease attack on a 3-turn cooldown, then leech on an A1, and then he also removes debuffs from himself at the start of every turn, prioritizing things like stuns and freezes and all that provokes. So yeah, he's going to break free from that crowd control, and he's going to start protecting your team or stopping the enemy team from beating you up. Yeah, I think he's great. I think his defense in all battles 25%. I think if you got Hotatsu now as an early game player, you'd really enjoy this champion. I think he's super good. I think he's going to be big for Faction Wars as well. In 3rd place, I'm putting Saki. Saki is very similar to Seeker in some ways, and those sorts of champions. She has on a 3-turn cooldown, increased attack buff, and 20% turn meter fill. So good, solid way to boost up your team in speed. It also attacks as well, so she does damage. She's an AoE A1 that puts decreased accuracy, so great for, again, for a lot of content in the game. Hydra, she's going to be good in even Arena, especially with this move in Arena. Then her A2 attacks an enemy, decreases their crit rate, and puts leech on them. So helping you stay alive against those enemies, against tough bosses. And then she revives allies whenever she kills an enemy, which is maybe a little bit unlikely to happen, but she does hit. She does attack with every single move that she's got, which is nice. She's got solid base stats. So yeah, I think that Zachi is actually a really, really good epic. Yeah, just speeding you up and doing some nice attacks. Good debuffs. I think she's good. In second place and first place then, maybe on another level here, Gembo the Dishonored. Competing with Skullcrown, I'd say, for best arena damage dealing epic, for sure. He's a bit of a monster. First of all, he boosts himself with crit rate, crit damage, gives himself an extra turn, and then slams the Heartless Blitz AoE that also decreases buffs and can't be resisted when he crits. You want to build him to always crit. And then the fun thing is that he ignores unkillable buffs if he has increased attack, right? So, whatever. Arbiter lead, boosts his attack, then he boosts his own crit damage, smacks, ignores unkillable, rips through enemy teams. He has a speed aura for arena battles if you don't have an Arbiter yet. Like maybe you put him in there with your Saki that we just mentioned. Him and Saki and, I don't know, Haikatun in the lead, and boom, you've got yourself an arena team. Put someone to decrease defense there as well, and bam, you're good. So yeah, he's really good arena nuker. That's pretty much most of what he does is just arena nuke and probably faction wars nuke, but he's very good at it, very good. And then we have, I'm putting Taragi the Frog as my first place choice for Shadowkin. Again, I think he's a bit underrated because he's super ugly, but man, he's super ugly, but he looks cool. But he does some fun stuff. So number one, he puts a big shield on himself, ally protection on his entire team on a 3-turn cooldown, and then heals himself by a ton, reflect damage, and then the more poisons on the enemy team, the more he heals himself. So he's a clan boss machine, absolute clan boss machine, keeping his team alive and mega healing himself. And again, that works in sort of loads of dungeons as well. He has an AoE provoke to help you with waves. Again, the chance to provoke increases for every debuff on the enemy team. His A1 can decrease attack unreliably. And then this is fun, when he's attacked, has a 50% chance of putting a poison debuff for 2 turns on the attacker once per hit. So super good, super good for Demon Lord Clan Boss. If you're running a non-unkillable team, he can go into some of the best non-unkillable teams, which ultimately can even do more damage. So you pop him in with things like Lydia, Godseeker, Neri, Krisk, whatever, those sorts of champions. Super tanky teams. He is in there, absolute beast. He brings, I think, resist in all battles. Yeah, I think Taragi's really good just for controlling the enemy team, doing great damage with poisons, and super keeping you alive. Very, very nice. And there you go. They are all the factions. I want to very quickly talk about who would be my 5 epics of choice if I could choose any 5 epics on a new account to start out. This is going to be probably no real surprise, but my first 3 epics are really just unlocking unkillable teams, essentially. You could potentially go for just double man-eater, would be nice and easy, or even 1 man-eater, but I'm going new school. Screw the old school, I'm going new school. I'm saying for number 1, give me Demitha, right? Demitha is going to be great for her buff manipulation and this sort of stuff just in general, and then unlocking unkillable with this. And then to combo with Demitha, I'm going to grab Seeker as number 2 from Undead Hordes. Seeker is going to open up much easier to build and more powerful unkillable teams with Demitha due to his turn meter boost. And he will also give me just be a really good arena champion, massively up my arena team, speeding them up, making them hit harder. Good against Hydra as well, speeding us up against Hydra, making us hit harder. Really nice. In my 3rd champion, in a similar vein, is Deacon Armstrong, giving us that speed lead everywhere, speed boosting, decrease attack, leech A1. Again, unlocking that arena team. I can put whatever damage dealer I want into my clan boss or arena. There's obviously ones that are better than others, but it's these supportive champions with these super powerful abilities that are on another level. So they're like my top 3, unquestionably, pretty much for me. Yeah, I think that the advantage they have over Man-Eater is that Man-Eater I'm really only using in that clan boss, whereas Demitha, Seeker, and Deacon are going to be going into teams all over the place. Then in 4th place, the one I choose after that would be Godseeker Neri. I really like Godseeker. I think she's probably the best champion, the best epic reviver in the game. Such a good revive and so much healing and buff manipulation with her A2. Yeah, she's just going to open up Hydra. She's going to be great in all the dungeons, in arena, everywhere. She's going to be fantastic. So yeah, I'd really like that Godseeker early on my account. And then for the final choice, I was kind of going to and fro. I almost went with Venomage. I almost said Venomage might be the best as just a really good dungeon damage dealer that's also going to completely own in that clan boss team. I did decide, I ultimately settled on maybe Geomancer for my 5th choice. But I'd be open to changing this one. I would. You could stick in something like Madame Serras would be okay. I don't know. Let me know what you put in as 5th. But I think Geomancer would be good for those really tough bosses. Again, just being, even into the Demythic comp, he might even still be decent as a damage dealer. Maybe. I'm not sure if he is good at that or not. But yeah, I think he'd just be really solid for a bunch of bosses. So that's probably what I would go for. But there you go, guys. I'm going to sign off for now. Thank you for watching. Let me know what your top 5 epics would be. If you have any disagreements with me over these epics, let me know. Were there any that you preferred or didn't prefer? Yeah, any rankings you would radically change? Any epics you think are the best that I didn't even put on my list? Let me know. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. I gotta go get a drink. It's been tough work. See ya.